Good morning. Here I am again answering your questions. Thanksgiving is coming soon. 2 more days, I think. And I just want to express my gratitude to all of you for joining me here every day so we can together explore what is called reality. And I'm very grateful, and I thank you very much for joining me here. I'm continuing to answer your questions daily. Most of the questions are coming from readers of You Are the Universe, Discovering Your Cosmic Self, and Why It Matters. But as I've mentioned, you can send me any question on any topic, and I'll be happy to address it to you. Liz Madsen, thank you. Hello to you too. Lots of love to you. So, as I said, you can send me any question. And thank you, Liz. I get distracted by all your messages, so I'm going to focus on today's topic. As I said, you can send me any question on any topic, and the email is Jayo, J-I-Y-O. See, I'm getting distracted because of all your comments and all your compliments and all your wonderful messages. You can send me any question at the following email: info@jayo.com, info@jayo.com, info@jayo.com. I also encourage you to download the app Jayo, J-I-Y-O. Go on the internet and check out jayo.com, or download the app Jayo on iTunes or Android. It's our ecosystem for hanging out together and for sharing great ideas and from learning from each other and experts in the field of nutrition, love and relationships, health and well-being, spirituality, meditation, mindfulness, sleep, on and on. So please download the app Jayo, J-I-Y-O. So today I have a heart-rending email and also a heart-rending question, and it comes from Christina Tenti. She says, I'm a human having a human experience. This must be enough. I no longer seek enlightenment or spirituality because my daughter took her life after years of suffering with mental illness. I have not found faith and I do not have hope. I do not understand why people aspire to be awake or enlightened. It's an escape from this human form. Why try not to be what we are? We are human. If I try to be spiritual, I'm only disappointed because I seek my daughter on the other side of the veil, and I'm disappointed because although I know she's with me, I've never seen her human form again. I would never plan for this pain. I feel and hear her slightly and in dreams. Why are people striving to be something other than human? I want this to be over. I'm stuck with this punishment. I wanted to go with her and it would cause too much pain for my family. I don't know how to be okay without her. I listen to your meditations, read books, try to meditate, nothing works. Deepak, I knew something was wrong when I was in Africa, and she took her life in the US. I could feel the earth tremble, but didn't know why. Why couldn't she have a miracle? Why couldn't one of my guides or dreams tell me not to go or to go home? If you can extrapolate from this, I'd appreciate it. Grief is a life sentence for me. She was my twin soul. So there you are. And she also sent me a beautiful picture, and for reasons of privacy I'm not going to show it to you right now. A beautiful picture of her with her daughter. So first of all, let me say to Christina, I very deeply feel your pain at this moment. I feel your sorrow and I grieve with you. And there's nothing I can say at this moment that will lessen your grief. You have to embrace your grief, you have to go through it. Try not to analyze it too much, although you can't help that too. And so whatever happens, naturally do it. Feel the pain in your body, because that is where the pain is right now, in your body. And the cure of pain, as Rumi said, is in the pain. The cure of pain is in the pain. Ultimately, there is healing, but it's a long way off, or seems to be a long way off, when you're actually in the midst of all this pain. But you have asked a question, and I feel compelled to answer it. And I will do so as soon as we return in 15 seconds. So I will do my best to answer your question, and see if that helps. If not right now, perhaps as we move through the next few months, trying to understand how to move through grief and loss and suffering. Okay, so Christina Tenti, and that's the name of the person who sent me this question. I will do my best to answer your question in a few seconds. Okay, now just remember that although I'm going to do my best to answer your question, it may not satisfy you, Christina, because you're in the midst of extreme pain and loss and suffering. But come back to this video later and see if it makes any sense to you. Let me start off by saying that if you ask people around you, anyone, if they've had loss or death or grief in their life, or if they know someone in their family or friends who's suffered extreme grief and loss, the answer, of course, is that no one can say in the affirmative that they have not suffered the loss of a loved one, and if they haven't, at some point they will. So grief, loss and suffering are part of our life, part of our existence. In your case, it seems to be, and it is, an extreme form of loss. Mental illness is a global epidemic right now. In fact, I recently did a survey to see what was the number one disease that humanity is suffering from. It is depression. And depression also preceded by a low-grade persistent anxiety. It's estimated that by the year 2030, depression will be the number one cause preceding all illness globally. So depression is a global epidemic, and so is anxiety. And suffering is a universal human condition. There is suffering in life. Of course, there are other things in life also, including joy and love and pleasure and ecstasy, but suffering is definitely everywhere. There is no one that is not affected by suffering. So let's go back to why spirituality, why seek enlightenment and all of that. You've probably heard the story of the Buddha, but it bears repetition. So before Buddha became the Buddha, which means the one who was awakened, he was a young prince, and his father was an emperor. He wanted his prince, his boy, to be the most famous, important, powerful emperor of his time. He also made sure that his boy, as a teenager, never saw suffering, old age or death, and surrounded him with pleasure. In fact, built a pleasure palace for him. But one day the young prince asked his best friend, who was a stable boy, to take him outside the ramparts of the palace walls. And for the first time, the young prince saw an old man, and he had never seen an old man because his father had prevented him from being exposed to old age and decrepitude. And he said, "What is that?" to his friend, and his friend said, "That's a really old man with extreme decrepitude." And the young prince asked, "Will that happen to me?" And his friend, the stable boy, Channa, said, "Yes, it happens to everyone if they live long enough." The next day they saw a very sick person, and the young prince asked the same question, "Does that happen to everyone? At some point, does everybody have infirmity?" And his best friend said yes. And then they saw the third day a person who was dead, a corpse that was being taken to cremation, and then the same question was asked by the young prince, "Does everybody die?" And he said, "Yes, everybody dies." And he said, "Will I die?" And his friend said, "Yes, you will." So old age, decrepitude, suffering, death, they are a part of the experience which, Christina, you call the human experience. This is pretty universal. And the reason why people seek spirituality is actually to go beyond this, to understand the meaning of suffering and to go beyond this. So, after the Buddha's awakening, he came up with the Four Noble Truths. And here they are. Number one, life contains suffering. He didn't say life is suffering. He said life contains suffering, as it contains so many other things. Number two, there are causes for suffering. That's the second noble truth. Number three, there is a way out. And number four, the way out is the Eightfold Path that he described. Okay, the Eightfold Path was correct, clear thinking, correct, clear perspective, focused awareness, correct ethical living, expanding awareness beyond ego identity, mindfulness and meditation, and correct evolutionary speech. Now, these are a lot of things to talk about, which I'm not going to do right now, but basically, this Eightfold Path led the Buddha to some conclusions. Number one, the separate self does not exist. Number two, everything that we experience is impermanent. And number three, there is a reality that is beyond the field of impermanence. There's a reality beyond the field of impermanence, which is our home. And in that home there is wholeness, there is healing, there is holy presence, and there is a return to where we started from. Something similar to T.S. Eliot's phrase in one of the four quartets, I think, we shall not cease from exploration, and the end of our exploring is to arrive where we started from and know the place for the first time. It is only by moving from the human identity to the spiritual identity that we can go beyond the suffering that stems from the separate self. Your daughter was a part of you. You, that which you call yourself, you, was and are a part of her. And as body-minds, we all exist in the same consciousness. And that is our true home as body-minds. You say human form. You long to see your daughter in human form. But all form is a phenomenon, and there is no permanent human form. In your case, the form was taken away from you very suddenly, although there was years and years and years of depression. But the form is not a fixed entity. It's constantly changing. That which we call form is a phenomenon that is constantly being born and is constantly dying all the time. But that in which that form is born is eternal. That in which that form arises and subsides is eternal. So when we shift our identity from our local self, which is the body-mind, to the awareness in which the body-mind and other body-minds are in experience, then we actually have a connection to all that is. Your daughter is in your awareness and was in your awareness when she had the form that you speak of, okay? And she's still in your awareness, and you are in her awareness. And as we go deeper and deeper and deeper into that awareness, then we all coexist in that awareness inseparably. And that is the experience of true love. It's the only thing that can heal sorrow, but love not coming from the identity of the separate self. Love as a state of being in the unified, non-dual awareness in which we all coexist as interbeings. Thich Nhat Hanh, he said, we are interbeings that inter-arise in the inter-isness. And only a slow and gradual progression and movement from the local impermanent self into the non-local timeless being in which we are all contained, and the resulting deep love that emanates from that loving presence can be the ultimate healer. And that's why it is important to wake up to our true identity, in which all this is being played out. Joy and suffering, pleasure and pain, conflict, love, the opposites of life are playing themselves out in this realm of our separate self. But beyond this, in the realm of that which is the I within the I, there is only oneness, and there is only healing. Healing as wholeness, as holy, as sacred, as loving presence. Now there's a lot more to say, but at this moment, in your grief, I can only say embrace your grief. Know that others grieve for you, and know that when you grieve for others, you not only allay their suffering, but you allay your own suffering as well. You allay your own suffering as well. The only way to allay suffering is to know the truth of the non-separate self. Settle in being. Settle in being, even as you watch this, anybody who's watching this. Settle in being and see the arising and subsiding, the birth and death eternally of thought, of perception, of feeling, of people, places and things. And then ask who or what is experiencing this. That which experiences impermanence is silently and eternally and timelessly present as presence. Presence, present as loving presence. In great spiritual traditions, this has been called the Holy Ghost, or loving presence, or God, or divinity. And that is the only source of healing. And together we need to embrace the deep presence in which there is the arising and subsiding of evanescent experiences. When we expand our awareness, we see a lifetime is but a blink in the eye of cosmic time. It was the Buddha who said, "This lifetime of ours is transient as autumn clouds. To watch the birth and death of beings is like looking at the movements of a dance. A lifetime is like a flash of lightning in the sky, rushing by like a torrent down a steep mountain. But that in which all this happens is timeless being, timeless being. Rest in that awareness, settle in that awareness, sink into that awareness, be in that awareness. And only then will you realize that which is holy and that which is healed. So much for now, and I wish you the best, and I wish you deep understanding and healing, and know that when we collectively suffer and embrace the suffering of each that we come into contact with, that is the birth of empathy, which is the birth of compassion, which is the birth of love, which is the birth of healing. Take care.